We pay respect to the elders, both past, present and emerging. We deeply respect their right to self-determination and are grateful for their gracious hospitality and allow us to convene, work and broadcast this forum on this land. We also extend a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the Migraine Foundation of Australia and the Asian Regional Consortium for Headache, the ARCH, for the PCNS Consumer Forum. This program is dedicated to understanding the challenges individuals face in the context of long COVID, or PCNS. We are delighted to have both our Australian and international audience participating with us here and on Zoom. The Migraine Foundation is Australia's first registered charity focused on migraine and brain health, dedicated to educating the public and healthcare professionals about migraines, brain health, including COVID-19, and their impact on people's lives, as well as the significance of diagnosis and treatment. The ARCH serves as a leadership body for headache disorders in the Oceania region, and we thank them for their support, particularly our current president, Professor Tissa Wijeratne. In today's session, our primary goal is to hear from all of you because our research is nothing unless we have your insights. We value your input, so please be sure to complete the REDCap survey that we have been distributing. And we are really happy to welcome our esteemed professors and academic partners who are joining us today to hear your thoughts and experiences. This includes Professor Sheila Cruiser and David Cruiser, as well as Professor Wijeratne and also Dr. Wijeratne. Sorry, we have to. We're from La Trobe University as well, and Dr. Nina Riddell. Dr. Delani Wijeratne, is a senior psychiatrist from the Australian Institute of Migraine, and we really look forward to addressing your questions in today's session, but also hearing your thoughts. Before we delve into today's symposium, we have a few little technical things to just remind everybody about. Obviously, keeping your phones off during the session is really helpful. Not taking photos, we'll be able to give you the recording later on. If you're joining us on Zoom, please share your thoughts via Zoom, but other times be muted just because we can get feedback from the session as well. And if anybody's here with us in the room, there's bathrooms just outside for your convenience as well. Right, well, let's start by getting some of your thoughts about your experience as people who have been experiencing long COVID and how we can be of assistance so we can better understand what your circumstances have been. All right, where do we go? Can we open up the forum? Would anybody like to start off telling us about their experience?
Thank you, Mel. Should we go to the room or stay in Zoom? What do you think? Maybe we'll come back to the room. Who would like to start the conversation? You're happy to go? So, my name is Tissa. I'm a neurologist, so tell who you are and from where are you and a little bit of you, and then share your story.
Sure. Hello, my name is Amber, and I work in healthcare. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've been living with long COVID since 2020. I was unconfirmed getting COVID before the vaccinations from one of my clients, and I had about 10 months of quite significant illness, going back and forth to emergency departments with all sorts of different things going on for me. A lot of neurological based symptoms with migraine and stroke-like symptoms and sleep disruption and a lot of headaches and then gut problems that came after that. The symptoms and also chest pain and heaviness, I'm trying to think around that first tranche of symptoms. The symptoms then did settle, but then each time I had my vaccinations, I had a further flare of symptoms, and it was only after successive flares where other unexplained things were happening that resulted in me going to hospital and getting checked because it felt extreme each time. Then I ended up being told retrospectively that it seemed as though I'd had COVID, but that wasn't until 2022. And I actually got COVID a second time over the Christmas New Year with that big surge that we had over the Christmas and New Year, which was mild. The COVID itself has not been anything more than the flu. I wasn't hospitalised or anything. But then after that second round, I never really came good again. And when I had my second booster vaccine, I ended up having to call an ambulance, or COVID hotline did, because I woke up with my head pounding and a lot of chest tightness and symptoms that really looked like a heart attack. And after that, I've been left with a lot of heart problems, not enough to meet the POTS criteria, but certainly a lot of palpitations and significant problems with migraines, which touch wood have settled for now. But my overall functioning is nothing like it was. I still have fatigue. Tip of the tongue syndrome is a problem for me, where the words just don't come as quickly. Headaches I'm still waking with, and I am often feeling like I'm waking with a vibration in my head during the night, like a phone on silent, which is a symptom that I would love to know. And the other thing I have is burning tongue syndrome. And I've tried to rule those problems out with my GP and another doctor that I've seen, who's an infectious diseases doctor working with COVID-19. No one seems to know. I've been told that that's nerve damage potentially. To my mind, it feels like my hypothalamus has been hijacked and everything that it controls has gone haywire. That's probably enough for me, though.
Thank you for sharing that experience with us. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, if I ask a couple of questions, I think I happen to be the only physician in the room. So in medicine, as you know, we like to ask questions to get to the story a little bit more.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Before COVID-19 happens, were you 100% normal? Absolutely nothing wrong with your head?
No underlying medical conditions, normal blood results, no need to be on any medication. The only thing that I would take would be some hay fever medication when the plane trees in Melbourne are doing their thing that they're doing at the moment. But I've never had any other underlying conditions. The only time that I've had migraines were times when I was having some hormone changes around puberty, and then a couple each pregnancy when I had children. But other than that, I've not been someone that's regularly had anything wrong. I used to run 12K a couple of times a week and go to Pilates 3 or 4 times a week and yoga a couple of times a week. I was working 2 jobs. I was working as a senior policy advisor in health as well as working as a psychologist.
So your life was full on, and
it was full. I was working full time and doing postgraduate studies at one point a couple of years prior to the pandemic. I was doing that and starting my own business, and I'm an enterprising person ordinarily, and right now and for the last couple of years I've had to cut my work right back. At the moment I'm only capable of working 10 to 15 hours a week, and if I do any more than that I crash and I have to cancel clients and things. I'm only doing private practice. I resigned from my policy work in June this year because it was too much for me to imagine being able to function at that level.
Amber, my next question is, if you were to draw a graph of your symptoms, do you think that some of the symptoms that you mentioned, I'm aware that we are on record, so I'm not going to go deeper into your capacity to the work and how efficient you are, and etc., etc. Mm-hmm. However, what I wanted to know is, if you were to draw a simple graph of what's happening to your symptoms, have they been staying at the same level, or
no,
do you feel that they continue to get worse? Or?
The graph goes up and down. I feel as though what has happened to me has cycled around flares, and those flares don't always have answers. There were definitely flares that happened when I was exposed to whatever the vaccine did to my immune system. And then in June this year, I spent 5 days in the cardiac unit because my heart rate was so odd that I wasn't able to exercise, and I failed a stress test there, and so they admitted me to rule out anything else underlying, and I got the all clear with that. But after that, I had a vasovagal reaction to the angiogram, and
like a blackout.
yeah, like a shock reaction, and the local anaesthetic didn't work in me properly, so it felt like I was having a steak shoved into me with a cannula, and all of that put me into shock for 36 hours after. I couldn't see, I couldn't stand, my hands and arms were numb, I couldn't speak. So that was all as a result of that intervention. And then I'd say I was sort of functioning at about a 6 out of 10 when I went in for that, with very limited exercise and a very much that paced way of functioning day to day. And I went down from that down to about a 1 to 3, and I feel like I'm just coming back up. I've started doing physical exercise again the last 2 months, gradually starting with walking. I'm engaged in the Epworth Long COVID Clinic doing some supervised reconditioning but symptoms are still there. My nights are the worst, waking up repeatedly.
What over-the-counter medications have you been trying so far, searching Mr. Google and through medical folks and non-medical folks? Have you been trying any over-the-counter medications for your symptoms?
Yeah, for a while I was on antihistamines. My GP told me to try those. And then I was put on famotidine in conjunction with that for the 2 different types of histamine receptors. I was taking Panadol and Nurofen for headaches for a while, but the Nurofen I can't tolerate. I get more stomach upset because the gut is all disrupted with the long COVID. I've got like an IBS type gut. I've had diarrhoea for over a year. In terms of other medications, the migraines, I was tried on amitriptyline, and it felt like I had an electric shock in my head with that. Trying to think what else. My doctor put me on benzos on and off for a bit to try and regain some sleep, where I was really feeling sleep deprived, so I was using those once or twice a week for a while to try and bank sleep.
Have you tried anything else, such as melatonin, turmeric, black pepper extracts, taurine?
I'm currently on 2 different medications. Just before that, though, I was put on HRT because of my age and everything attributed to menopause, and that made it 1,000 times worse. So I was put on the estrogen-based lotion, and then the Promethean for the progesterone protection. So I ceased that because it was far worse. At the moment, I'm on 2 milligrams of melatonin, and I'm also on metformin because I felt as though some of the symptoms that I've had are like my endocrine system's been disrupted as well. Although I don't meet criteria for diabetes or anything, the doctor I'm seeing who's working with long COVID, and I had a talk, and I said I'm interested to see if that makes a difference. And I feel as though that one is making a difference, stabilising things.
Hopefully my last question for you at this go is if you have an opportunity to directly talk to the research community on this field, what are the 3 to 5 key areas you want them to concentrate on? What are the areas that are most disturbing you, that you need answers?
What the hell is going on with my brain would be my biggest question, because it literally feels like it's hijacked whatever this virus has done. I feel as though it's a signalling fault or a control centre fault. I don't think I've got these random things happening in my body. I feel as though there's something that is stemming from the way the brain's functioning differently now.
So you wanted to know what is wrong with you? Yes,
I'd absolutely want to know what it feels like. My nervous system is functioning differently, and I would like to know, at the root cause why, and if it's able to be treated and treated in a way that I can get back on with functioning. A lot of the medications I've been offered would be things like pregabalin and those strong medications used for things like fibromyalgia and nerve pain and that, because I've had problems with those as well. And I can't go on those and be even more spaced out.
Amber,
What a work.
as a clinician, I'm acutely aware of the impact of your illness on your work colleagues and your family members and society. I'm not ignoring them,
Yes.
but I'm not asking those questions we have a reasonable idea if we were to put ourselves in your shoes. I'll now pass the microphone to a couple of other academics in the research side so that they may have questions also.
Sure.
We have a sort of wide the interprofessional audience here. I am a neurologist, we got a psychiatrist, we got a physicist, we got a couple of postdocs and the molecular biologists, statisticians, epidemiologists. So you got a plethora of brains, although the crowd is small. And then we will go back and study like hawks on this recording material.
That sounds good to me.
They try and come back with answers in time to come. So Sheila, you had a couple of questions.
So
Sure.
Professor Kruger from La Trobe University is going to ask a question.
I was just very interested in whether your GP was checking your bloods often to actually look at whether there was a change in the lymphocytes and the neutrophils and things, only because that tells us about level of inflammation. And were they taking that into their consideration when they gave you some medications? Because you mentioned you thought your hypothalamic function was being stressed. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about whether they kept a very good eye on the immune system at the same time.
Sadly, my experience with GPs was very patchy. I was seeing a GP that had been long-standing who didn't think I had COVID, didn't believe in long COVID, so that was not helpful.
One of this, I guess that to me is the biggest problem we're dealing with. It's taken 2 or 3 years to...
Exactly. Every time I would go with the research papers from Nature and the NICE guidelines and all the things that I was looking for myself, because I'm in the profession, I can read and interpret.
You. I heard you go through your drugs really well and thought the one thing I needed...
so I didn't get a lot early, but then I started to push once I knew there was the long COVID clinic at Royal Melbourne Hospital. I kept pushing for a referral there. And so it was around that time, it would have been the end of 2022, that I started to get some pathology done. And in April this year, I've changed to another GP who sees another family member of mine. And I'm the one advocating to get those tests and things done. And I've had some bloods taken also with this other doctor that I'm seeing who's I don't know if anyone's heard of Clinic 19. I was referred out to them after the Royal Melbourne long COVID clinic ended. So that's my point of contact. I've only had 2 consults with that person though. I think they're online listening because I let them know about today.
Oh, that's good. Well, I hope someone keeps monitoring your bloods. If only we wanted 2 fairly close together to get an idea of whether the degree of inflammation is changing or whether it's a constant, because you can predict the prognosis often on the basis of that. And if they put it together with all the other good things they've tried, then you're starting to be able to sort of say, okay, this helps with lower inflammation, gives me more cellular energy, etc. We've got a corollary sort of...
Yes, you start building a picture. I'd love a picture rather than
I'll
dots.
chat to you more sometime.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for that. It must be such a challenge to be dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. And your self-advocating is extremely hard.
Yeah, the self-advocating, that's the bit that I'm focusing on now.
Yeah.
That's why I came today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We're just seeking some feedback from the audience on Zoom to see if they have any thoughts that they would like to share. So you can type into the chat, we think, or post a question into the Q&A as well.
Apparently the chat is disabled, so I'm trying to figure it out. They can use Q&A.
Yes, the Q&A function is enabled, but also the microphones of the Zoom audience are enabled as well. So you can put your hand up and unmute yourself if you would like to contribute.
Itzel, if you're happy to talk, the floor is yours now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So my name is Lisa. I'm a rehab physician. I'm a doctor, and I just recently been, 2 months ago I was admitted to the stroke unit because during a CVA, like a small stroke. So just in terms of my background, I am 42 and otherwise was fit and healthy with no really risk factors. And then obviously then I presented to emergency because I had some onset of right-sided weakness and some sensation changes, which I think because it started quite in the middle of the night, I just took quite a long time to actually present to emergency department between me just trying to minimize what was going on, and because I have a young family as well, it wasn't that easy to go into hospital. Eventually I made it to the stroke unit and I met Professor Tisa there. Fortunately, my strength issues pretty much resolved, and my sensation issues as well, although I still have some very minor numbness of my face and arm, but it's pretty much everything, all the other symptoms are pretty much gone. In terms of what risk factors did I have to begin with, perhaps a tiny bit of a high cholesterol, very mildly elevated, but otherwise I didn't really have any other past medical history. So I guess my question in terms of my risk factors was the fact that I had COVID twice, if that had anything to do with me having a stroke at a young age, which at this stage I'm not 100% sure, but I do wonder if I didn't have COVID twice, could this have happened to me, and especially because given that there's a lot of evidence coming out that there apparently looks like there is some association between COVID infection and developing microclots or some vascular injury with your endothelium, that it may not actually show up, but increases your risk for strokes and heart attacks.
Itzel, thank you very much for joining in. I know you are super busy despite you had all these health issues, and I'm glad that you are back to normal. To answer to your question, whether the 2 episodes of COVID-19 infection had anything to do with the vascular event that you had, while none of us can be 100% certain that it is indeed the case, it had been known that the infections that are bothering us does have a repercussion on how our vascular system behave. In fact, some of these original descriptions were well described while I was still a late primary school kid. Funnily enough, we ourselves, including some in the audience, wrote on this theme in the past. Sheila can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we wrote a manuscript essentially saying that COVID-19 and stroke to be expected, not to be treated as the exception. So. To cut a long story short, while me as a treating physician cannot, as you know, medicine is not mathematics or God, so it's a very humble science. While I cannot definitely confirm, I certainly can't exclude the relationship between two things. Mainly given that we have not found a particular risk factor for your vascular event. Sheila, have you got anything to comment, having co-authored the same paper that I mentioned?
Thanks, Itzel, for talking to us. Can you tell us when you had the 2 COVID events? You said it was twice. I'm trying to work out the correlation with the time when you had the vascular event.
Okay, so the first infection was in, what was the first one? I think sometime in early 2022. So I think it was March 2022, and the second one was in December 2022.
And did your vascular event occur after the second one?
Well, not shortly after. It happened in August.
So between them?
So no. So it was 8 months after the second one.
It's a long time, but I mean, it's just as Tissa said, the correlations are there, but for every individual, if we don't have, well, I haven't seen the bloods analyses and things like that, which would actually probably give us a bit more information. There's certainly going to be an expectation that there can be extreme vascular events, both cardiac and in the brain, following COVID, and increase in the what we call the cytokines, which make blood coagulate, which you're going to understand, and a couple of others. Okay? Happy to talk some other time, but thank you so much for contributing today.
Itself, just to add to the complexity, I mean, you are a physician just like me. You are in rehabilitation medicine. As you know, I think it always intrigues our minds why certain people come to us with a particular vascular event, whether it is a heart attack or a stroke on a particular Sunday or particular Friday or particular Saturday. Had everything happened at that morning, or have there been preceding events happening weeks to months earlier? I don't think we have either bothered to study these things or studied them well enough. But it always bothered me, certainly for the last 20 or 22 odd years. Do these things occur out of nowhere? Which I doubt, probably not. I think the process of it's like some of these wars that we experience at the moment. They don't accidentally occur immediately. There were preceding events before. So similar to that, biologically, I like to think that there had been a whole lot of ducks slowly aligning before a particular massive event on a particular morning or particular afternoon. I think it is up to us to partner with other academic colleagues and the people with lived experience themselves, like we do here, to try and answer those the questions, and then hopefully do a lot of preventative things, which is much more cost-effective rather than trying to find solutions. Thanks, Itzel. Thanks you for joining.
Can I just make a comment before?
Go ahead.
Institute of Australia. He's doing a lot of studies in terms of biomarkers post-COVID, especially related to vascular injury. He did do in the COVID inquiry that the government had earlier in the year. He had a very interesting presentation about his research. And a lot of what he was saying in terms of the barriers for him to continue with his research is that access to samples of patients in Australia. So I'm just letting you know, in case that if you guys as researchers wanted to reach out to him, I think that would be an excellent step for people to be linked, I guess.
We would be delighted to Itzel. In fact, there is the group called the COVID-19 Global Neurological Alliance, and I have been a part of that for the last couple of years. The size of the problem is too big for us to work in silos, so we just have to put forces together. So we are delighted to work with them. Just connect them with us.
Thank you so much for that insight.
We got one more
yes,
question.
so we have a question on the the Zoom Q&A, which Tisa will read out.
We got the anonymous attendee. If you are happy to say your name, that's fine. If you don't want to say your name, that's fine also. You say, "Hi, I had severe brain fog, loss of words, short-term memory loss following my COVID infection in August 2022. After some push by me, my general practitioner ordered a brain MRI scan 6 months later, which showed white matter spots consistent with migraines or microvascular ischemia. I have never suffered migraines. I did have a brain MRI scan 5 years ago when I had some headaches associated with a sinus infection, but the MRI was normal. I am 43 years of age and was told by the GP that I'm too young to have microvascular ischemia. Have you seen white matter spots associated with COVID infections? Is there a treatment for this? My GP has not referred me to a neurologist. Do I need to see one? My brain fog is slowly improving. I was told by the GP to take low-dose aspirin. Can you hear me? You can type on the chat line as I can't, the Q&A section, as I can't activate the chat for some reason.
Yes, they can hear you.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, they confirmed underneath.
Right. Are you ready to talk? You can talk. I can make you talk. Oops. How do I get them to be
If you
able
go to the participants icon.
Right. So that's okay. So you have trouble with the microphone. That's okay. So just to answer your question, the live white matter spots in the brain is not uncommon, even in so-called normal population. Up to about 20 to 30% of the people, if we get 100 people collected from street and put them through a 3 Tesla MR scanner, we might see 20 to 30% of them having tiny white spots. Obviously, I'm answering this in a generic way, so I hope that you would not hold me this as nothing but the truth. I haven't seen your MRI scan. I'm just answering your text. So the non-specific small white spots are not uncommon. Yes, I have seen them in COVID-19 also. In fact, I'm monitoring a couple of patients cautiously at the moment. We don't, unfortunately, exactly know what's the underlying reason behind these white spots. Most radiology colleagues report them as related to migraine or small vascular disease. I'm not sure whether there is enough evidence base to support low-dose aspirin, but your family doctor probably would have a good reason to recommend them. Your other question, should you see a neurologist? Obviously, if you see a good neurologist, you would get hopefully a comprehensive neurological assessment and the answers to your questions on the basis of your clinical history and the examination. But overall, I would like to reassure you not to panic or not to worry too much about. But when I do see white spots like this, I do advise my patients to make sure that they meticulously control their blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, keep well away from smoking completely, cut back alcohol, practice healthy eating, good sleep hygiene, all those 16 or 17 good brain health habits that most of us are well aware of. I hope I answered your question. If not, you can type more questions. And I'll come back to you. Until then, we might now come back to the room. Luke, you're ready to have a go now?
Sure.
You want to come to the front or stay there?
He is comfortable.
He's comfortable.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. Hi, I'm Luke. I'm 28 years old and from Melbourne, live in Brunswick. Pre-COVID, I was working full-time and studying full-time. I work as a prosecutor and was doing postgrad law studies as well. I think I had two like pre-vaccines and then caught COVID at the end of November 2021. My infection was quite mild, like a sort of flu thing. And I went back to work the following week, but couldn't focus on anything. I was extremely fatigued. I'd fall asleep at my desk and I couldn't do any problem-solving tasks. So my work sent me home for 2 weeks over the Christmas period. And I tried to return to work, but each time I had the same problem. I'd be really confused. I couldn't solve any kind of executive functioning skills. I had major issues with. But by about April the following year, I started going back to work 1 day a week and working on one case instead of the normal 20, and slowly increasing my days and caseload to maybe half of what I was doing beforehand by August, where I was going in about 4 days a week. And then started to increase the complexity of my tasks, whilst I also did some exercise, a graded exercise program with an exercise physiologist. I had a very unsupportive GP who reluctantly referred me to the Royal Melbourne COVID clinic because he also didn't believe in long COVID. So I saw two psychologists who both said, well, you have symptoms of anxiety and depression, but you don't have either illness. You're just adjusting to, this major change in your life where you can't do any of the things that you want to do. So I could at least track a very slow but linear progression in my health, sort of returning towards the end of 2022. What happened? I started with the COVID clinic in about October, and then caught COVID again in November of that same year. And then that time around, I developed some breathing issues during the acute COVID period, and so went on to some different breathing stimulants. But then since that second infection, I didn't have the same recovery that I had had last year. I tried to go back to work for a few months to try and do different tasks, but I had the same problems with executive functioning skills. So I could do administrative tasks, but any kind of issue that required problem solving or reading comprehension or other analysis, it's that part of my brain just doesn't work. I did an allied health program at Royal Melbourne before it shut down, and have done a lot of pacing sort of work, which has been good to manage my fatigue, which is probably my main symptom. Beforehand, I would run every week and ride my bike to work, and I wasn't extremely fit, but just doing normal things. But now I can only walk for about sort of 15 minutes, and anything more than that, I'm just wiped out for days. I don't physically recover, and I have aches all through my body, and my bones ache, and all my muscles ache, and everything's very weak. So I stopped doing exercise physio this year because every time I would try and increase it, all of my symptoms got a lot worse. And I didn't see, I was on a waiting list to see a doctor at the COVID clinic for 18 months since the first infection. But I didn't see them until June, when Royal Melbourne lost its funding for the COVID clinic. So I've been doing some other general respiratory testing, and I've got sort of 60 to 80% capacity and function in my lungs. So they're sort of investigating what that looks like, but I at least don't have COVID scarring from the CT scans, but I have this breathing restriction. I've just met Dr. Tissa on Monday, so he asked me to come, but that's the first time I've been able to see a neurologist to look at the sort of brain side of things. Everybody up until now has sort of said, well, you're so fatigued, you've lost all the other function. So I suppose, like, I don't know if like my condition is essentially I'm so fatigued and I, have inflammation in my body that I can't function, and it interrupts all of my other things like the executive functioning skills, or if there is something going on in my brain that is causing these issues that I didn't have beforehand, that's running alongside the like physical fatigue as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Any questions? David. Professor David Cruther.
Hi, I was just interested whether what medications you got put on, presumably not blood pressure, but you're pretty young. But I was wondering whether they looked at cholesterol treatment or anything like that.
Because my first doctor didn't sort of see it as anything, I didn't do anything for the first basically 12 months. This year I did a naltrexone trial, a low dose for 3 or 4 months, but it didn't improve any of my symptoms. But towards the end, we noticed that my liver function was getting a lot worse. And so my doctor did some more testing and found that my cholesterol was slightly elevated as well. But it wasn't high enough for him to put me on any medications for it.
I was just wondering, certain people, my wife and myself, independently, suffered, some muscle pain and so on after starting statins, and so that's why I was just interested in that.
Different people at different stages.
Sorry.
Professor Sheila Cruther just asked if Luke's bloods had been monitored during any
See, I
stage.
can't understand how he let you go for a year without checking your bloods. If you were saying you had all this, you'd been a fit person, and then you couldn't do anything. I'm surprised, no matter what he believed in. I can't understand why he didn't say, okay, let's work out metabolically what's going on.
Yeah, I suppose that issue is seems to be generally shared by lots of people that see a doctor that doesn't sort of accept the condition is anything other than, the initial doctor was just said, well, you're probably just depressed. So,
Well, even if you're depressed, then he still should have looked at your bloods.
Probably.
To actually work out whether there was an inflammation underlying it, and whether it helped him work out what the medication should have been.
Sure. I know my current doctor has been quite good in that he's engaged in a conglomerate of other GPs that are looking at long COVID things to try and...
Fantastic. So you've got someone now who's starting to think.
Yeah, and so that's how he found this professor to refer me to as well.
Fantastic. Can I go sideways there and ask, do you think one of the reasons that both you and the First Lady...
Amber.
Yeah, weren't given so much care was because it was during COVID and no one really... Were you coming?
Both of you, keep the microphone very close to your lips.
Sure.
That's where most of the voice recognition comes from the microphone. So get it close to your lips.
Sorry, I wasn't actually trying to be on telly. I'm really more interested in trying to work out from the public health system, did we let people down because it was during COVID and we were trying to do it online or something like that? Is that one of the reasons? I'm hearing in both... I thought that's what you'd said before. How about you, Luke?
Definitely with the waiting time for the long COVID clinic. I think I'd received correspondence that, my referral was live, but so I held off on looking to another doctor because I was like, well, I will see someone at the COVID clinic, that will be the best person, so I'll just wait. So I waited, almost 10 months to get into the clinic, but then the clinic changed my referral from the respiratory sort of medical clinic just to the allied health clinic, so I didn't see a doctor to do any kind of testing until June, which is when it closed. So then I've only done any physical testing and blood work with Royal Melbourne in August when I saw just a general respiratory doctor and he booked me in for the neurology and respiratory testing.
Right.
Exactly the same.
It's big. It's worrying.
So, Luke, the same question for you. What areas do you think the COVID-19 related, the brain involvement in particular, research community should be concentrating on as far as you are concerned? What questions you need answers from us as fast as and as soon as possible, if we can answer them?
I suppose for me, similarly, it's kind of around, answers in regards to what's going on. Like, at least for me last year, I could say, well, I'm progressively getting better. But this year, I haven't been able to work basically at all. And my symptoms have generally been the same. I can get more stable if I do less, but then, I'm just sitting at home or sleeping for the whole day. So it's not much of an exciting life for, anybody. So I suppose it's around, it would be helpful for me to know what's going on or any kind of time frame to things, because, if I knew, well, if you wait 2 years and do the right thing, then you'll get better because we know that it's X, or you can do this treatment, then I suppose that would significantly help the way that I could deal with the situation rather than, the unrelenting unknown.
Lucy, I might turn to you now, pass the microphone to you.
Sure.
Just within a minute or 2 minutes, just share the experience of impact of having someone unwell with what we believe as post-COVID-19 neurological syndrome or COVID-19 impact on brain for you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Luke's wife. We've been married almost 3 years. So most of the time we've been married now, Luke has had long COVID. And at first I just sort of was like, it'll go away, it'll get better. But evidently it hasn't. And more, I think it's very evident just having conversations with Luke, seeing his brain stop. It's like the cogs kind of stop talking, stop moving, and you very much see in Luke, he sort of starts to get kind of close off and not be able to engage anymore because he's just so fatigued. And I think it's very evident just day to day, his capacity for everyday tasks and little stresses previously now cause a lot of pain, and a lot more effort to just go through everyday life. And
what is the impact of this on your work, your day-to-day work?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I still work full time, but I try to get to appointments with Luke where I can, because it is just hard to follow along for Luke sometimes in those appointments. So it's always good having someone else to take notes and things, which obviously is hard to manage. I've got a really supportive workplace, so I'm lucky for that. But it's just very, very difficult before. Luke still helps around the house and does things like that, but just involves having support from family and friends because he's not able to do the things that he previously could. So, I try to be there and pick up the slack, which is obviously really difficult and not what we hoped or planned for.
The reason that I came back to you is just last week I was in Canada and we heard of the latest neurological epidemiological data on the neurological illnesses. The papers are not published, but we were told that there are just over 3.5 billion people suffering from one or the other neurological disorder. This is not taking the long COVID into account. At the end of some of those meetings, I pointed out to them, while we care about 3.5 billion people, these 3.5 billion people do not live by themselves. Most of us are connected to several others, married people, children, the workplace, the extended families. It's almost like all 8 billion people are affected by things one way or the other. But most of the time, the partners and carers, they go ignored by most health services. And I just wanted to hear that voice so that when we plan things, we take that also into account. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor Cruiser has a question.
Lucy and Luke, can you differentiate, Luke, whether you're fatigued, or whether, and that causes depression, or whether the depression adds to fatigue, because I'm trying in my head to do it biologically and work out, do we have a difference between them, or do they become sort of coincidence? And are you anxious all the time?
I think when I have done too much, you know,
Physically, yeah.
physically or socially or, you know, emotionally or whatever, there's been too many things on. I noticed that I'm significantly more fatigued, and in those states, I'm significantly more anxious and depressed and generally emotional.
Sort of run together, yeah.
Yeah, which I suppose is separate to, you know, the cognitive side of things.
But wouldn't both of them, fatigue particularly, affect the cognitive side, that it just becomes too hard to think out and you sort of lose concentration because you're doing it slowly?
Probably.
Things like that.
I noticed, I suppose, a distinction would be, you know, we tried to go on a holiday, and I was looking at trying to buy a new backpack, and, you know, so I could look at all of the different websites and different images, and I went into a couple of different shops over, you know, a couple of weeks. But I couldn't figure out which bag to buy, because I couldn't figure out, well, is it worth spending more money on this one, or do I want this feature over this feature? That you know, the simple analysis of something, it's like that section of my brain just completely stops. And that's regardless of how much, you know, exercise or other stress I've had. Yeah.
So it's mental fatigue as well. That's really where I'm sort of trying to work out whether it's not for just you, but for a couple of other patients I've seen, whether it extends into muscle fatigue, whether one comes first, and because you're making so much more effort to try and even just think up words, that you lose the conversation or you lose the desire to follow through, even with the exercise or anything, because it has corollaries that knock you round. And so we're sort of getting into a circle that biologically is going to get worse and worse, in the sense at the time. I don't mean it for a long term. I don't know enough, but that's what I think we're heading for, trying to ask, what is brain fog? Is it the same as mental fatigue? And do both of them run always with physical fatigue and muscle fatigue? Because I would think most cells in your body are reacting the same way. I don't have enough energy. I can't make it fast enough. And hence, I feel exhausted. Anyone who's had kids is going to know what I mean. Even though you adore them, you're tired all the time. So after a while, it becomes harder to laugh at something in general. But thank you so much. We will certainly follow through and try. Yes?
Yeah, I've got this one now. Just with the question around the anxiety and depression, one of the things that happened to me from July last year, which was when I had the heart attack type symptom, which wasn't a heart attack, but after that I felt like my nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, has been overactivated. And at first I was reporting in, it felt like someone had jumped out from behind a door and gone boo at me. It was that frightened feeling in me.
Your vulnerability and the fact that something could happen really gets to you.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was just a biological sensation. So I could just be at home without pressure, without anything going on. But that feeling, the sensations of it, like verging on a panic attack, were the way my body was just sitting, and that was unable to turn off. And my way of understanding it, it was like that was in overdrive, like a phone that it was running my battery down quick because there was too much going on. That was the way I was describing it at the long COVID clinic. And so I would go from feeling okay, and then all of a sudden my battery would be dead. And it was this sensation like everything was hyper-vigilant in overdrive. And I felt like that then triggered all the gut reaction stuff because the rest and digest wasn't working.
Of course. Yeah, you've shot your...
Yeah. And that's only just starting to settle where I'm feeling like,
Someone had taken your bloods along the way so we could
oh,
trace
well,
it.
I've got a few. I mean, I can look them up if you're interested
We
to
would
see.
love to follow through
Yeah,
sometime.
I'm happy to pull it together for you. More than happy for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody there. I would just now like to invite Fiona, who is joining us from online, to share her experience.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm having a really bad week at the moment as well this weekend, but I've got a pretty long story. So I've had 20, maybe 21 emergency presentations. I've seen 6 GPs, a number of specialists through the
Fiona, we got a question from the audience. I'll stop you there. Just give me a minute.
I'm sorry, I'm pretty...
No, that's okay. That's okay. You are doing well.
So we just have Professor Cruiser from La Trobe with a question for you, Fiona.
Fiona, I'm wondering, would you rather that Tissa and I sometime talk to you on your own? And
That might be better. I'm jumbled, so much has happened. We've had 20 emergency presentations, 6 GPs, 9 months bedridden, trouble walking, legs going numb, my bowels overly impacted, bladder not working, brain not working. It's probably, I could probably talk for an hour about my symptoms.
Fiona, given that we are on record, we don't want... Sorry, Fiona, we don't want you to record a whole lot of things as you are on record for this meeting. Perhaps we would get down information from you and see how we can help you. A question for you is in the COVID-19 related research, which areas are most burning or most impactful for you, if you could think of for researchers to concentrate on from your point of view?
Well, again, the man that spoke a few minutes ago, some research to find out what's going on with us, what can be done to hold or healers. Yeah, what sort of, so you know what sort of outlook we've got, what's going on, so we can plan for what's there. And I don't know if I'm going to walk today or tomorrow. I tried walking last night. I've got very few people around me because they either don't understand, don't want to admit, or it's too much.
Fiona, we are very confident that we are going to find the answers that we need. It will take some time, but we will give our very best shot. So stay positive and stay hopeful and never lose hope.
Thank you. That's been really hard.
can you get the phone number?
Just don't put it in the chat.
Thank you for letting me speak, and I'm really sorry.
No, don't apologize. Stick around. You would hear more from the audience. We are going to keep talking until about 4:30.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. And listening, I'm sorry.
Redo, I'll come back to you, but I'll go back to the room before I come to Zoom so that we give people who are here a chance also.
Yeah,
Susie,
sorry.
you're happy to talk
Don't
also?
apologize. Thank you for sharing your difficult experiences with us. If you wanted to contact Dr. Tissa, his email address is at the bottom of the screen. You can see there through the University of Melbourne email. So you can pass on your details.
My name's...
And if you pass on your details, then we'll be able to follow up with you and understand your experience in more depth. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
My name's David King, but I'm talking on behalf of my wife, Susie King, who's 77 years old and was very well until she realised she had long COVID, and Susie has now had long COVID for 12 months, so it's her anniversary this week. The main problem is the fatigue that she has, probably requiring her to be sleeping or at least in bed for 14 hours a day, and that's continued for the year. It's often referred to post-exertion malaise, and that's certainly been referred to earlier today, where with very little activity at all, Susie just needs to go and lie down and collapse, can't do any more for the rest of the day. And so pacing has been a big thing for Susie, so she tries to pace her day and only do a small amount of time, because if she overdoes it, then she will crash. So that's the main thing. Other thing she's had is brain fog, which has been referred to a lot today. She also has very severe headaches and will make the comment that she feels her head might explode. She also has earaches, quite independently of the headaches, which can be quite excruciating. The thing is that the symptoms that Susie has vary from day to day and vary from hour to hour. So the headaches, which can't be reduced by painkillers, might disappear after a while and then come back again an hour later. She's also been diagnosed with bradycardia. My wife's a nurse here, so I'll be corrected if need be. And prior to this, Susie has and still has pulmonary fibrosis, and that has continued through this period as well. She experiences chills too, diarrhea, and as many others have reported, chest and limb pain. She also has rashes from time to time and easily bruises. So among the 203 symptoms that are now recognised as COVID symptoms, Susie has probably about, haven't listed them all, but maybe 15 of the most common of the 203 recognised symptoms. With respect to the GPs, Susie's issues have been exactly the same as all the others have spoken about. They have no knowledge at all of long COVID and don't seem particularly interested. There's no known way to diagnose long COVID, so they can't diagnose you. There is no known treatment, and there is no known cause. So the GPs aren't able to do their job. So what they do is follow the traditional route of refer you to specialists. So with each of the individual conditions that Susie has experienced, she's been referred to specialists. So we've been to a large number of specialists. She's had endoscopy, gastroscopy, she's seen a respiratory specialist, she's seen a psychiatrist, among other referrals that Susie's taken. She's also had 3 overnight stays now at the Epworth Camberwell Sleep Clinic, and that it revealed that she had extremely fragmented sleep. Susie has tried a CPAP mask, which she trialled and wore for 1 month, but that didn't seem to have any positive outcome. She's tried things like Belsomra and various other medications. I haven't got a list of all the medications that she has had, but there's quite a few of those. The thing that has helped us, or Susie I should say, is this long COVID handbook, which I'd recommend that people obtain, written by Jez Mendinga and Professor Danny Altman, an immunologist, because they've based their book on several thousand people that they've interviewed and also speaking to a large number of people in the medical profession. That made us understand what Susie was going through and the issues that are involved. In terms of the question that has been asked as to what should be focused on, I think it's, for us, finding the cause of long COVID. What is actually causing long COVID? Because if the cause can be identified, then one can imagine research can be done to then move forward for treatment. The other question I've got here that Susie asked me to ask was that should people with long COVID, especially in her age group, being 77 years old, be investigated for mini blood clots? Mini what? Mini clots. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Any question for Susie? I'll probably answer your questions and we take on board all what you said. I think overwhelmingly all of you in room and on Zoom telling us that what the hell is wrong with us seems to be a key burning the question. That's the same that I have been told by 100+ patients that I have personally seen also. With regard to investigating for blood clots, The answer is yes, but on the basis of symptoms. Generally, in medicine, when you decide on a particular investigation, you need to know what is known as pre-test probability of a particular test being positive or negative. I don't think that we have enough knowledge at the moment even to pick up who is having long COVID or post-COVID neurological syndrome. Out of those people, obviously the patients who come to me are more biased towards brain involvement because people know that I'm a brain specialist. Whereas people who would go to a hematologist would be more focused on blood-related issues. So you may get two different answers from two different specialists for this question. So in my case, if I see a patient that I clinically suspect there a possibility of blood clots, I would investigate them. So it would depending on not just having long COVID, but some pre-test probability on the basis of the issues that you are experiencing. Important here to recognize that the drawing attention to each symptom is particularly important from medical point of view also. Medical community is reasonably well known to ignore things if it is not recognized. I'll give you an example. The most of you know that I'm particularly interested in headaches and migraines as a special interest. The first neuroscience chair in Australia who passed a few years ago is the first one in Australia to be interested in this condition almost globally. In fact, he and one of his colleagues from Sydney, what they did was they basically sit one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. They end up seeing like 500 plus headache patients, and they tabulated all the symptoms that they heard. Then they reported it to the global community. These are the symptoms that patients were saying. So I'm using your question to encourage you all to continue to keep an eye on those symptoms and reporting those things back to us if the doctors are not interested in them, getting them interested in by providing them with typed and other answers. We have to advocate for ourselves also as we expand science. Amber.
Thank you. I think one of the other things in terms of research and influencing the medical profession while the condition's being understood and further explored, I think another thing I would feel would be useful would be to have something to give GPs to know the sorts of things to screen, to be keeping track of over time, whilst we're all waiting to understand this better. I think the lady who was asking the questions, Dr. Kruger, was it? Yes, yeah, you're asking about what have my doctors been doing in terms of blood tests and that. It's so hard to self-advocate on that level of detail because I don't know what the tests are. And I'm only on the metformin because I asked the person, because I'd done research likewise with the melatonin. Likewise with anything that I've tried, it's been me going and saying, what about this? And showing them an article and explaining my proposal, trying to create a rationale for them to try it for me. I would love my doctors to be treating me like they're my doctor, not like I'm my own doctor, going and getting them to sign prescriptions and then in between offering me a lot of, this looks hard, you poor thing. That is unhelpful, and it feels like I'm being treated like a lot of the things that I live with are just psychosomatic. And as a clinical psychologist, working with people with chronic illness is a core part of my own work, long-standing. It feels really patronising to get that over and over again. So I'd love them to be clearer, because I think doctors need to feel confident that they know that there's something they can do. Let's clear that bit up if we could, if you've got any way of doing that. Thank you.
Can I please ask a question then? And I don't, this is for everybody. Don't want to make you be your own doctor again on top of that. But what is the first thing that you wish they had looked for in terms of understanding your experience?
What to do with me?
Yeah.
So I suppose, yeah, just some sort of framework for care would be useful for them, rather than them travelling blind. I don't know, I think we're kind of stuck in Australia at the moment because the government ceased funding the long COVID clinic. That first GP who didn't believe in it thought that was a good place to send me and get rid of me. Mm-hmm. And like Luke, that ended up being allied health. I mean, I feel like I've talked the bejesus out of this over and over again, just telling people what's wrong and what it feels like to live with it. I would have liked to have been treated more like someone presenting with symptoms of cancer, where there'd be a battery of screening tools and tests to rule in, rule out what's wrong with me. And that's taken 3 years to get to that, and still waiting.
Exactly. And so if that battery was to be developed, because hopefully that's something that we can help assist with, what do you think we should have looked for first, or they should have looked for first? What was the thing that said to me, or to you, sorry, this has got to be long COVID?
Yeah, so
it's a big question, I know, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the spate of migraines said something had changed, and the fragmentation of my sleep, like you were saying, crazy stuff. Like, I'm sleeping like when I had a newborn, except there's no one else waking me up every 2 minutes. So that would be another one, looking at what's going on with the sleep. I think, the inflammatory markers, hormone levels, endocrine changes, I mean, all of those things seem to have just happened to me, and all of a sudden going from someone healthy to things. Luke mentioned the liver screening. His liver's not working, mine isn't either. I've got no history of any of these things, and it's been lots of aches and pains. So actually looking, why are you aching? Rather than just, oh, that sounds terrible, you poor thing, have you overdone it, or you're deconditioned, or, just take it easy, it's because you've been sick. So some of those things actually being screened rather than just responded to with empathy would be helpful.
So would I be right to saying looking at fatigue at a metabolic level?
Sorry.
Looking at fatigue at a metabolic level, like at a really cellular level.
Yeah, looking at things like that. I've had changes. I've always been someone with low cholesterol, and that runs in my family. There's no history of diabetes or anything like that family-wise. I've had a grandmother who died of COVID at 100. And she was not on any ongoing medications other than some aspirin. And then that, I've got a dad who seems to be able to go to bed and eat magnums and blocks of tasty cheese and things, and still has great cholesterol levels and no diabetes. I eat mainly plant-based. My mum's vegetarian. My diet is not doing things wrong to change me in the way that sorry, there was a mouse that just ran off.
I didn't bring it.
That's a first.
It's a long COVID mess.
Neurologically with the brain, that's all of a sudden switching different. It's like there was different switches in my brain, and things have all been tipped out of balance, and now I'm in a dysfunctional state of functioning. And so where's the cause and effect of it? I feel like there's been a cascade effect, and now the horse has bolted. I've been living in this body for a few years with things not working as they're designed to, and now I'm being sort of approached in a sense that I've done it to myself. And is it really long COVID? It's still a question being asked of me. And I haven't had the referrals to the specialists. My doctor, the new one, has said, I don't want you on the specialist merry-go-round for you. And so all I seem to be getting is allied health, which tells me they're not taking this as a medical condition, they're seeing it as psychological. And I keep getting told to relax and do mindfulness. I mean, I'm doing those things, of course. I don't disbelieve in them, but there's only so far that they will go to put things right when there's something else that's gone wrong.
Okay. So Sheila has a...
Amber, these are valid points. Just to put things into perspective, we are in the process of going through published literature on 14 million person years of what we believed as COVID-19 impact on brain. We haven't published it yet, but it is in the sort of process of submitting. And we hope to publish it in preprint so that you can see it. I think some of you are going to be invited to be co-authors of them also, some of them. We can't have all of you because it would take some months for us to submit. What it teaches is at least 1 in 4 of us who had COVID-19 infection seems to have measurable impairment of brain function. Just to put that into perspective, imagine this include some of your political leaders, some of your academic leaders, and some of your hospital leaders. If there is a slight delay in reaction of one of your cardiologists, if he or she happen to be in your coronary artery, that might mean death and life. I'm not scaring people. This is the real world that we live in. Yes, our policymakers and the funders are not particularly interested in this condition, but we can change that. If I were to take you through the memory lane on HIV pandemic, there was a time that humans did not hug other humans. There was a time that humans did not shake hand with other humans. It is people who change that and force policymakers to recognize that as a key issue and educate properly, and they make that a reasonably treatable, preventable condition. Similar campaigns are happening in headache field, Parkinson's disease, and other things. So what I want everybody to walk away from this place is full of hope, not hopelessness. I think we should be able to figure this out. Those of you who didn't get the opportunity to talk, if you don't get the opportunity to talk today, this is one of many forums, so there will be many to come. The online, the opportunity allow us to communicate reasonably easily. I'll come back to Sheila. I think you had a comment to make.
Wait for the... wait for the microphone. Oh, okay, yes, sorry. So at the moment, I've been working with Sheila and Tissa, I'll get to the toolbox in a second, going through over 4,000 papers, looking at this aggregation of data to understand the symptoms that people are presenting with. And everything that we heard today is really consistent with what people are reporting internationally in a variety of different settings. And so we're looking at kind of ranking the presentation of these symptoms as well to understand, what is coming first, how is it impacting people, what is that point of intervention that we can focus on, or a series of interventions that we can focus on to enable us to actually make a meaningful difference, maybe preventing long COVID, because that would be the ideal situation, but also for anybody who's experiencing it at the moment to actually help that remission or resolution of the condition as well. So what we're putting together at the moment is a grant application to try and take a very systems neuroscience approach. So I'm a neuroscientist, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a neuroscientist, to say what is it that we can see in the brain that's happening? Can we correlate this information with just those general kind of tests that a neurologist or a psych might do about how you're feeling, but also use molecular techniques, and this is what Nina's going to be specialising in, to bring that blood understanding, the proteomics, what's changing at that cellular level, at that protein level, to say, this is an inflammation cascade, can we interfere with this inflammation cascade to help resolve the symptoms? we can use brain imaging to sort of understand that change as well and see what are we seeing neurologically that will then intersect with this kind of behavioural phenotype that we're seeing as part of the condition as well. So this is what we're really pushing for, to have that really multifaceted approach to understanding long COVID, to give people that toolbox, to give clinicians that toolbox to be able to move forward towards some kind of resolution for people and for patients experiencing the condition. Does that sound okay? This is what we want to do. We're really invested in this and trying to move forward with this because we certainly recognise the impact that the condition is having on everybody out there and the lack of understanding across some aspects of the community and the medical community. We're hoping to, again, provide something meaningful for them so they don't just go, have a go at this specialist, and this specialist, and this specialist until you find something that might work. Oh, and Sheila needs a microphone.
The other thing is, just when you go and you give your symptoms, and Luke commented on, sometimes he feels better and sometimes he's developed. What David is trying to help us develop, we've been doing a lot of testing as a psych and as a neuropsych. I get really mad when there's no objective measure, like we say, older people can't do as good cognitive testing because we ask them to use their hand. I want to try and know how fast your brain can do something, put it online so you can actually test it yourself. We've now developed a battery of tests which are available for people after stroke to test out whether their visual motor stuff's come back, to test their visual fields and to know whether their eyesight is okay, which if you went to an optometrist, he'd do. But most optometrists only think to ask you, can you read the chart? They forget that the more important part and the thing that gets you hit by a car is that you didn't see on the side. So what we're trying to do is develop a battery of tests that will be available online that doctors can say, okay, log into, and you can actually see how fast your metabolic stuff's working today. And we're trying to correlate it very much with the bloods because they tell me what your degree of inflammation is, what your neuroimmunological response is, and hence we're doing the cognitive things like mockers, and I don't like a mocker, but I'm happy to use it, and a Ravens, which is a much better measure for me of how well you can problem solve. So you can do it quickly, find yourself whether you're getting changes. So then you know whether something someone's put you on is actually helping. You give it reasonable time, but if it doesn't, stop taking it, because everything we give you to a certain extent is a poison. Okay, so you need constantly to be doing that interaction, and that's what we're asking the government to fund now and to help us get these things online that we've been playing with in labs for a long time. Tis is better at this side of it than me. But well, we'd love you to come back, and because we'll give you access to them as soon as they're online. At the moment, they're in the labs, and we're going to be looking for groups of people who've still got brain fog, people who've had brain fog and got over it. So I know then to be able to say to a doctor, this is one of the things that stops being a major marker. And a group of people, like the rest of us, who haven't had anything else. And if there was unlimited money, people who mainly had muscle things. Because what we haven't heard, I should have asked earlier, do you know yourself or anyone else who's only got physical symptoms but not finding the brain fog? Because it seems to me that if you've got lungs that are hurt, you're not going to be getting enough oxygen to your brain. But I don't know the answer to that one, and I didn't mean to rattle off. Sorry about that. Here, Tessa, I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask one question. It sounds like for all of you, your symptoms are kind of going up and down over time. In terms of any research that we might do trying to understand that, you know, what's going on molecularly and how that relates to behaviour, if we saw you on a day where, you know, you were having a flare-up of all these symptoms versus a day when you're feeling or functioning a bit better, that has sort of implications for
Absolutely,
the research.
it would, wouldn't it?
So I'm so interested to hear how often you feel like you're having flare-ups and whether you have a sense of how long they are likely to go, or if you can tell that, you know, this is going to be a bad few days ahead of me, that kind of thing.
I think in Susie's case, they just last a few hours. You don't know when it's going to come.
Totally
Just wouldn't know that 1 hour later it'll be gone, or suddenly it comes on. Yeah, it just floats back and forth, unfortunately.
I would say mine are longer. Mine are sort of weeks at a time. So for me, and it seems to follow a bit of a cycle. So I notice that my heart rate will start going up again, and I start to wake with more headaches in the night. I'm not sleeping deeply. I'm back in REM sleep virtually all night, like over 2.5 hours of REM. And maybe half an hour of deep sleep, because I've got one of these wearables that the cardiologist told me to get at the Alfred when I had the heart attack symptom. I notice that I go through periods then that I'm feeling foggier in the brain. I suppose I would attribute that to not sleeping soundly, unrefreshing sleep. And then that post-exertional malaise where I feel like the exercise spikes the heart rate up, which then tires me even more, compounds it. The irritability of the bowel gets worse, sensitivities around the bowel, and being careful what I eat. They sort of be, and then the aches and pains, I suppose, are the other part of it. So waking up with numb limbs, waking up feeling like I've been running up and down stairs all night when I haven't been, things like that, where the body is just aching. All of those things seem to kind of go through a cycle. And so when I start getting the heart rate up again, that's when I tend to do the pacing to bring everything down again, and to really prioritise sleep, to try and maximise that, because I think that's key for me, but I cannot achieve an unfragmented sleep. If anyone's got any solutions for that, I'd love to know.
Hello? One thing that may be very good is if objective testing can be played out across the community, then if people go between feeling good and feeling not good, even if it's only for a few hours, if you keep getting measures of those condition changes, you get a much better chance of nailing what's happening.
I use the Visible app. Does everyone know the Visible app? That was released over in the UK as part of their funding that tracks... Pardon?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't. I think King's College was behind that. It's called Visible, and it's for chronic fatigue and long COVID. And it just has a list of things for a daily morning and afternoon check-in, and it uses heart rate variability tracking in the morning.
So that's like if you add to heart rate variability, which is an objective test, because it looks at the interbeat interval between heart rate and so on. If you add to that a whole lot of things related to other neural events in the brain, then you've got a much better chance. It collects symptoms again, and it's online, so it's very good, very advantageous from that. But you need things that will actually test the ability of the brain to, let's say, react fast, or react fast under pressure, or to, keep working, or to measure that fall off in performance.
Absolutely.
If that sort of thing can be instantiated, then we've got a chance of measuring it properly.
Reaction times. I mean, I'm so clumsy now.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Luke, your experience is consistent with what the other people are saying?
I can't remember what the question is.
The flare-ups. Yeah.
I think for me, it's mostly around how much I have going on. It's not as random as Susie's experience, but I suppose it's sort of like days for me to recover from something, and I can feel the symptoms flaring up in the moment of doing it. It's hard work sitting upright in this chair, so I can tell now that it's going to take me a while to recover from the event of coming in here and trying to focus, and I can't focus enough on what everybody's saying, so I'll just pick, you know, a few people to listen to, because if I try and stay focused the whole time, it's just going to completely blow me out. So I guess like I'm trying to like compensate, knowing that the crash will come and I don't want it to last too long. But for me, yeah, things will take days, depending on how big the event is or like how intensive the test is. Yeah.
Thank you incredibly for coming and helping us understand better.
Thank you.
Fredo, now your chance to talk.
So we have online.
Hi, you can hear me okay?
All good.
Good, good. Okay, my name's Rado, I'm in Canberra. I have a science background, and I've been struggling with exactly the same symptoms that everybody here has described for just over 2 years now. My issues were, however, caused by my Pfizer vaccinations. Within 6 hours of my second shot, everything, all the symptoms that everyone's described here came on very suddenly. So no doubt in my mind that the COVID vaccinations can cause the same conditions. I won't go through my whole story because I've experienced almost, like I said, almost exactly the same things that other people here have described. You know, the brain fog, the fatigue and everything. Actually, on the fatigue, I might just make the point that I would not call it fatigue. It's something else. It's on another planet. I remember early on speaking to some of my specialists and saying it's like I've got energy, but I simply cannot access it in any way. It's there, but I can't do anything with it. So I wouldn't call that fatigue at all. What I would like to say is make a couple of points, because the question was on directions for ideas for research into the future. The group of people who have the same issues caused by vaccination is quite a unique group, in that it was just the vaccination that caused their problems, whereas with long COVID there might be other confounding issues, because the virus can of course create all sorts of damage in the body. So the researchers who include the vaccine-injured people inside their long COVID research, I think stand a better chance of trying to tease out the mechanisms and the different types of long COVID by that special case of people who have just the vaccine caused long COVID. Unfortunately to date, I have not come across any serious efforts in Australia to actually research any of these vaccine-caused issues, which means that we are behind the eight ball. It's hard enough to get doctors to recognise us. We've heard the stories here, long COVID people, COVID post-infection, it's very hard to get doctor recognition. It's even harder with the vaccine because nobody wants to acknowledge it. And then further from that, nobody wants to research it. So, but time is running out because COVID is going through the community. All of these people who've got long COVID caused by their vaccination, sooner or later, will end up encountering COVID, which will diminish their value as research subjects into long COVID. So that's probably all I'll say at the moment. I started a not-for-profit organisation with a number of other people called COVERSE, C-O-V-E-R-S-E, specifically to support people with vaccine issues. I'm happy to stay on for questions or be contacted otherwise. Thanks.
Rado, you are spot on, and I have seen a number of people similar to you also. Rest assured that although we haven't advertised in that context, almost every answer that we find with regard to the viral infection itself will be replicated on the vaccine-related neurological symptoms also. It makes sense that, as you know, that we got a small amount of snacks outside, but sometimes even food, when we eat, some of us do react to them negatively. Same goes with any medication, and same goes with vaccinations also. So we would be interested in the vaccine-related group also, and they will not be barred from any of the the research or other things that we would be doing, and if we end up finding solutions, they would have direct ramifications on vaccine-related neurological effects also. It's similar to other neurological disorders, disorders such as Guillain-Barré syndrome, which usually occur after post-viral infections, but we know very well that about 1 in a million the patients who does get any vaccination can end up having those disorders also, which I normally sign up every time when I get flu vaccine or any other vaccine. But I do know that if I do get it, the treatment and other things that we discovered over the years that are going to be beneficial for me, whether it is coming from vaccine or not related to vaccine. So you are not alone, and we will work with your group as we move forward with the discoveries. And thank you for joining in today.
Thank you so much. Yes. Would anybody like to make any final points or concluding remarks? Anyone online? Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, yes. Yeah. Sorry, I should pause.
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this, and I'm pleased to have made the effort, although it was a big effort to get here, but it's really good to hear that things are happening. I've kind of wondered, and I asked all the people at Royal Melbourne when their contracts were due to end, where to from here, looking for some lived experience committee options or to be involved in any research and that with the lived experience I've got. And given I've worked in policy as a senior policy advisor and am a clinical psychologist, I've kind of got that way of seeing things that might lend itself. So, please do keep in touch.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Well, it has been an absolutely invaluable experience speaking to everybody today, and we do thank you so much for attending online or in person, particularly knowing the impact it could have had on you just to be here today. And definitely we do really hope that we can stay in touch and follow through your experience, particularly if you want to keep in touch with us through the Steps for Migraine campaign and supporting the Migraine Foundation. That's a way of keeping up to date with what we're doing so we can make a difference in this space as well. So if that's okay, we might tie up the session today. And I just would really like to again thank everybody for being here and taking their time out. And also expressing our gratitude to all the individual people and groups who helped this session come together as well. So people who are in the board of directors of the Migraine Foundation, the NWMMS staff, and the Australian Institute of Migraines team. Also, a special thanks to the Sri Lankan Morning Show team. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied myself. And in particular, Mr. Nimal Alwas and Sugita Alwas. And very big congratulations for winning your Antenna Award for the Best Cowed program yesterday as well. So thank you so much for your support and being here today as well. So thank you. And we have some light refreshments outside for those who are here with us in the